Hello, geeks. Welcome to Geeking Out, the podcast about all geeky aspects of software delivery, DevOps, observability, reliability, and everything in between. I'm your host, Adriana Vilela, coming to you from Toronto, Canada. And geeking out with me today, I have Abdel Sghiouar. Welcome, Abdel.
Hello. I should have known so I could brought my American accent. So, hey y'all,
Hey, y'all.
hey y'all. All right, I'll try.
It's funny because the first time I heard y'all, so my husband worked in Jacksonville, Florida for a
hmm
couple of years. He's in consulting. And one time I came down to Florida with him for the weekend because he had some work stuff to do. And we stop off at a gas station, and they're like, "How y'all doing?" And I was like, I think I started laughing because I'd never heard like y'all in real life
Yeah,
up
I can
until that
imagine.
point. And I'm like, this is the most glorious thing ever. And I now just love saying y'all. And my daughter bugs me about saying y'all. She's like, don't say y'all. I'm like, it's so much fun to say.
It is. It is. I love it. So
So yes,
awesome.
little sidebar. So where are you calling from today?
I'm home surprisingly, because each time I talk to somebody, they're like, "You're home. You're always on the road." I'm in Stockholm, Sweden, so that's where I'm based. But yeah, usually I am somewhere.
I know every time I see you on on Twitter, I'm like, it's always a different city. You are definitely globetrotting.
Yeah, I'm doing. The way I say it is, I'm doing DevRel the hard way.
Yeah, no kidding. But I have to say, we met in person last year at All Things Open, and I remember it was like just before. It was definitely before KubeCon EU, and you were like giving me tips on like places to stay in Paris. You're
Oh
like,
yeah,
don't stay too close to the conference venue because then it's kind of a boring area. You want something that's a little bit further out so that it's closer to the cooler touristy stuff. And I'm like, yes. So that
I,
was such great advice.
and I think we ended up being in the same hotel. No,
We did. Yeah, yeah. You recommended a hotel to me. I'm like, that looks like a good spot.
yeah, I remember that we shared like a walk, and we had some croissant on the way to KubeCon
That's
at some
right.
point.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right. That's right. On one of the days we ran into each other. I'm like, staying at the same hotel and running into each other. What are the odds, right?
yes, yes. Yeah, no, that was fun. KubeCon Paris was fun.
That was. I'm looking forward to the next CubeCon. Are you gonna be in Salt Lake City?
I am trying, but yes, most probably yes, because I got accepted. I have a talk accepted, so
Yay.
finally, thank you,
Congrats.
thank you, and
I
yeah,
know
so
it's so hard.
hopefully I'll be there. It's gonna be fun. We are planning some stuff for the podcast, and me and the colleague were accepted, and then Kathleen is gonna be there, so it'll be fun.
Yay, that's awesome. Cool. I have many questions, but before we get started, I'm going to start with the lightning round slash icebreaker questions.
Sure,
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, you ready?
sure, go for it.
Okay. First question: are you a lefty or a righty?
I am a righty.
Okay. Do you prefer iPhone or Android?
iPhone. I've been experimenting with the Pixel 9 recently, the fold one, because I'm getting old and I need big screens. And I do have to admit I like it, but I am not ready to convert yet.
Yeah. So the folding one, that's cool.
Yeah, 9 fold, the new model, the big one.
That is cool. Like I actually miss my flip phone.
Oh
As
yes,
much as I love my smartphone, there is something so satisfying about like flipping
yes.
flipping your phone up, flipping your phone up to talk, and then just closing it to hang up. And yeah, I miss those days.
Yeah, unfortunately, the fold doesn't open that way, right? It opens like a
Ah,
book, but
boo.
it's still a
Oh,
foldable
it's
fold.
that kind of a fold.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I think that the one that you're talking about, the only model that exists is the Samsung Flip. They call it literally
yeah.
Flip. Yeah.
That's what I was
Um,
thinking of. Yeah.
but yeah, the Fold is like basically a big phone but double, because when you unfold it, it's like
Yeah.
just a small tablet essentially.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like a small tablet.
Exactly.
That's interesting. I'd be curious to see one in real life. I don't think it'll make me convert from my iPhone, but I would still be curious to see it in real life.
I am still on iPhone just because it's just so easy when you have everything Apple, and so yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I ever convert.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Well, that leads to my next question. Do you prefer Mac, Linux, or Windows?
I'm both a Mac and a Linux user. I've been a
Hmm.
Linux user forever since I started my career. Like I started with Mandrake, which then became Mandriva, and then eventually Fedora and Ubuntu and Debian, and then eventually a few years ago converted to Mac just because it's easier for work. But I still have a Linux laptop and I still use Linux daily. So
Cool.
Windows, I have never used Windows in my life.
Really?
Yes,
No way.
if you put me
What?
in front of a Windows computer, I wouldn't know what to do.
Oh my God. Lucky you.
Well, I don't know because well, yeah, sure, lucky me, thank you, I guess.
I'm sorry to the Windows people out there. No, I don't know. I've told a few people, I'm like, I have a bit of Windows PTSD. I like grew up on DOS and then Windows 3.1 and the succession
Yes.
of the Windows. And then I discovered Ubuntu like in the I don't know, I want to say early 2000s. I had it running as a VM. I discovered Ubuntu and VMs at the same time. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, you could run a VM. Yeah.
It's like,
Um,
what is this?
if somebody gets offended, I have three words to remind you: blue screen of death, or that's technically four words. So,
That's right.
crowd strike flights.
I have a blue screen of death t-shirt that I wear to conferences sometimes.
That's funny.
And it's great when people are like, "Oh my god, that's so cool." I'm like, these are my people who recognize the blue screen of death
Of course.
and can relate. Yes, yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, next question. Do you have a favorite programming language? And if so, what is it?
I'm a Python developer. Always been a Python developer for a very long time. I picked up Go a few years ago. I am learning Rust. And if you would have asked me this question 6 months ago, I would probably not even mention Rust because Rust has this like learning cycle where you are fighting Rust and Rust is fighting you for a few months. And once you get the heck out of it, it becomes
Yeah.
actually enjoyable to write
Oh,
code in it. Um, so in order of if in order, I would say Python, my preferred language. Go, obviously, I love Go, and right now I'm really having a good time actually learning and coding stuff in Rust.
right on. Yeah, I've heard like people who like Rust, but I always hear the learning curve is just
Oh, it's
outrageous.
insane.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I have not dipped my toes into Rust land. I'm with you on the Python thing. I love Python. I came up in the Java world, like did Java for a really long time,
Mhm.
15, 16 years. And then a friend introduced me to Python. I'm like, how could I be introduced to Python in such like a late stage of my career? But it's all good. And then I'm like, I've fallen in love with Python. It's like such, I don't know, it's like a nice, I think it's a pleasurable language to code in.
There is one thing I really like. There is one thing that I really appreciate about Java, which exists in Go, that makes me appreciate Go even more is chaining functions. Like you can
Mhm.
chain functions, like in
Mm.
Java with the way you chain functions with the
Oh,
with
yeah, yeah, yeah. The dot.
and yeah,
Oh, yeah,
and
okay. Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and that exists in Go, and that's really amazing. It makes code so easy to read. Instead of like having to use variables to capture the output of one function to feed into another function, it's just one long line. It's just super amazing. Well, long. No pun intended for Java, but you get the point, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true. I do agree that's nice. I think it's fun from a writing perspective, but if you're like reading someone else's code, you're like, what the fuck is happening here?
that's true. Then with that comes the challenge of how in learning how to debug code and how to use like breaker points to debug code so you understand what's going on. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
both a blessing and a curse sometimes, I would say.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with you on that. Cool. All right. Next question. Do you prefer dev or ops?
Oh, that's a very good question. It's funny. I studied software engineering. So I'm by training or by degree, if degree matters in this context, I am a software engineer.
Yeah.
I never really wanted or liked the idea of just doing pure development as main occupation, just because I always liked the interaction with hardware and the automation parts and all that stuff, right? Um, and when people ask me a lot, a lot of time about my career, I always tell them I used to do DevOps before DevOps was cool, because I was always in this intersection of like, how do you use software to automate infrastructure, right? And
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
that's at the base of it what DevOps is all about, right? So I would say in between. Um, I never really was in a job that required me to write applications like purely like just backends, and I never was in a job where I did just system administration kind of work. So I was always between the two.
Ooh, that's awesome.
So yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's funny the way that you describe it is that's like that's what I love so much about DevOps too is like you get the software stuff, but like you're getting to automate infrastructure, and I don't know, it's like it's so neat.
Yes, you get to understand how things actually work after they are
Yeah.
developed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny. I went through a period in my career like I had left tech for a bit, and then when I returned, someone asked me like, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do like with your career now that you're back?" And I'm like, I really like the infrastructure side of things, but I really like writing code. I wish there was a way to marry the two. And this was like before, DevOps had become like a household name. And then like I learned about DevOps. I'm like, what? Where have you been all my life?
Yes, and I mean, putting aside all the how to say all the things that people have to say about DevOps, because people have opinions about it, of course, but like just not going too much into what people think DevOps is or it should be. I think at the most basic idea of what it is, that's what I enjoy. It's
Yeah.
anything that is intersection between the two worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I love that. Okay, next question. Do you prefer JSON or YAML?
Oh, that's a very good question. I saw somebody today asking this question of like, what's your preferred programming language? What's your preferred configuration language that is not YAML? And don't tell me TOML.
I saw that same post.
So
I'm
we're
like, yeah,
following.
I have to agree. I don't like Pommel.
All right, I had to do some TOML. Have you ever had to configure container D before?
No, I haven't.
Because container D is TOML based, and it's horrendous. So
Oh, lordy.
yeah, I would
Yeah.
say configuration YAML for coding JSON, like data exchange JSON configuration YAML. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I have to agree with you on that. Cool.
so
Okay. Next question. Do you prefer spaces or tabs?
aren't they fundamentally the same thing? Aren't tabs just a combination? I mean, I'm just remembering. I have flashbacks to Silicon Valley right now.
Oh,
So
like exactly, exactly. Well, honestly, that's why I asked the question. I'm like, it's either going to be very polarizing where people have opinions, or some people are just going to be like,
doesn't matter, right? What was that phrase? Like at the end of the day, the compiler treat them the same way, so it doesn't really matter technically. I'd say I'm a tabs person. Yeah,
all
tabs
right,
is probably one of my most used keys on the keyboard.
all right. Two more questions. Do you prefer to consume content through video or text?
Oh, definitely video. Yeah, I hate reading. I mean, if it's short text, yes, but long text, no, video for sure.
My daughter's the same way. She refuses to. She's like, I don't want to read books, and she learns all this like ridiculous stuff on YouTube. It's so cool. Like she'll be like, today I learned about financial planning, and today I learned about like amputations. Like not a joke. These are like real life examples, and I'm like, what?
That's like a wide spectrum of topics that she is interested
I
in.
know it's like the most random stuff, but like she learns some really cool stuff. I'm like, I'm not going to interfere. Like, I'm not one of those parents who's like, you don't read, therefore there's something wrong with you. I'm like, no, like this is how you learn, and it's like it's glorious. I love it so much. So
I like, since we're geeking out here, in my one of my internships, I had to build an app for a person who is a PhD, like a doctor, like a doctorate, right? Doing some
Mhm,
research, and the research was in pedagogy, so the way you teach people. And there is this, like, I don't know if it exists all over the world, but in at least where I'm from, Morocco, it's like a methodology for teaching kids, which essentially is based on research from the 1950s, I guess, or something.
mhm,
Some dude at some point came up with this, like, 44 questions questionnaire or survey that you can ask people, and based on their answers, you can classify them in either visual learner, auditive learners. Like, do you learn by text? Do you learn by audio? Do you learn by reading? Do you learn by applied, etc., etc., right? And which, at the time, it was so cool because I had to build an app which was like a survey app, so I was learning, it was pretty cool. But then later I learned that this was actually bullshit. That research is BS. It has been debunked over and over, because, like, no one is one style of learning. We're all multitude, like, we're all multi to use a term which is very popular these days, we're all multimodal. Like, we learn using multiple ways.
yeah,
So the reason why I'm saying this entire long story is, what's interesting about, for example, video YouTube, right? You would assume that people watch YouTube, but I am quite sure that there are people now that just listen to YouTube. As
hmm,
in, you launch YouTube, it's
I'm
in
one
the
of them.
background, and you're
Yep,
listening to it.
yeah, like a
And
podcast.
yeah, and that's
Yeah,
hilarious to me, because, like, okay, so let's say, for example, you are listening to a video which explains how jet engines work. Did you actually learn how jet engine, like, did you look at the animations that explains how it works, or did you just, like, hear about it?
yeah, and that's the shortcoming of it, because like my dad loves to send me YouTube videos, and I'm like, if you send me a YouTube video, chances are I'm not going to watch it because I don't have the patience to like sit there and watch a video. But then I'm like, if I just put it on while I'm like doing dishes or whatever, it'll be
Chores, yeah.
fine. And so that worked fine. He sent me this video about like, I don't know, something to do with like the moon's orbit, and how it was like moving further from the earth. I think something to that effect.
Yeah.
And so it was all good until like they got into a part where they're showing diagrams. I'm like, God damn it! Now I have to like I have to pull out my phone and look at what they're showing the animation.
Yeah, it's
Because
it's it's
otherwise I
actually
was
pretty
missing
interesting.
out.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how people are actually consuming content in YouTube these days.
Yeah. Yeah. And then don't forget the YouTube shorts. Like my daughter watches so many
Oh
YouTube
yeah.
shorts. It's like constant. It's like either Instagram short what are they called? Instagram reels or YouTube shorts, and that's how she does her learning.
Sure, whatever works for your daughter, I guess.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, final question. What is your superpower?
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't get asked this question quite a lot. Um, I think I know how to be sarcastic. Like, I know how to use sarcasm in a way that is, like, makes a point without being hurtful. Sometimes people get hurt, but, like, you cannot you cannot accommodate everybody's feelings, I guess. But I can use sarcasm in a very good way, I guess that would be one of my superpowers.
That's great.
So yeah, otherwise, I cook very well. I'm a really good
Ooh.
cook. Just, yeah, the simple superpower. Like, if
That-
if the world goes south, I am gonna be fine.
okay,
Like,
so I gotta ask, what kind of stuff do you cook?
a lot of Moroccan food, since I am from Morocco. But I experiment quite a lot. I like to try out all sorts of cuisines, from different parts of the world. So probably second to Moroccan would be Mediterranean food in general.
Mhm.
A big fan of Asian food, Korean specifically. I like Korean food. Um, but yeah, generally speaking, just whatever. I like experimenting. I like, blending and mixing stuff together. And probably big part of my money wasted, if if that's a correct term to use, goes into like kitchen stuff. Like
I mean, come on, kitchen gadgets are so much fun.
they are, yes, but like, how many knives do you need when you are a home cook, right? Probably not 10. So, so, so no, it's fun. I don't know. I feel like it allows me to get out of the, like, do something with your hands, like be kind of tactile in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I have cooked for big parties before. My biggest party was like 40 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Does that
So
include dessert?
no, I don't do desserts just because I don't eat sugar. I
Oh, okay.
avoid sugar, generally speaking. So usually I don't. Or if I invite people, I ask them to bring dessert. But I can cook for big groups.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So party coming soon your
Sure.
way.
Sure. Yes.
Oh my God, there should be like cube cooking or something.
Yeah, we should probably do something like that. You know, there is like a
Speaking SIG,
boba. There is a SIG
SIG
boba
cooking.
now.
That's
SIG
right.
cooking.
Yeah. I love SIG Boba.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan. I've got my
I
bubble
can
tea
see
of the day.
that. Yeah, we like to claim that SIG Boba started with the Kubernetes podcast because it literally started with an interview on the podcast.
No way.
Yeah, it was I think Lee Capilli, if I remember correctly, interviewed during one of the KubeCons, and Lee was talking about the fact that we need parties without alcohol, and
Mhm.
it was Kathleen who was interviewing, and they were like Boba, and then I SIG Boba, and then another like a KubeCon after. It was like a thing.
Yeah.
So
Oh my God.
we like to claim that we originated the idea.
Oh, that's so great. And this is actually a great segue into one of the things that I want to ask you about, which is like your podcast.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm a co-host of the Kubernetes podcast. Me and Kathleen Fields, been doing it for almost 2 years now, well, slightly more than 2 years. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. You get to talk to a lot of interesting people. Um, it's a challenge. I mean, as you understand, you know, keeping something running is a
Yeah, it
challenge.
is. It is.
And we do have like help and producers, and we only do audio, and we're gonna start doing video soon. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. Yeah, it's it's funny. Podcasting is so much work. Like when in my previous podcast on Call Me Maybe, we had a producer, so she would edit everything and she would do audiograms, send stuff out for transcription. But this podcast is like everything me, and
Yes.
the extent of the help I get is like my daughter edits the videos, but
Oh, nice.
like everything else is me. So I have to like I have I have to send stuff out for transcription. I have like an AI tool that I use for that. But I still have to check to make sure that it's, not spewing crap. So I have still go through the script and like, sometimes it misinterprets words, especially open telemetry when someone says hotel, it thinks it's hotel
Hotel, of course.
constantly. So yeah, it's but it's fun. It's such a great way to meet like really cool people is through podcasting.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like podcasts are are one of these things where you can actually get access to a lot of people. I
Yeah,
feel like people like just sitting and discussing for some time. So we can get pretty much anybody we want on the show. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty nice.
that's awesome. And did you is this a podcast that you inherited or is that a podcast that you started?
We inherited it. So there was somebody else before us, and we took it over like 2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's and we've been, I mean, we changed a little bit some stuff. We reduced the schedule, like the frequency, and we started with doing some stuff. So one of them is the whole story behind the SIG Boba is we started doing interviews during KubeCon. So we go to KubeCon and we interview people, right?
Oh,
And
fun.
yeah, and then we produce an episode about, and then we do every KubeCon. So
Yeah,
so that's like one of the things we do, and then we do a bunch of other things. It's fun to experiment also with different kind of contents to try to attract different people. So yeah, no, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun.
that's great. So when you do the KubeCon episodes, like, do you find like a room where you record, or you like on the floor and just like chase people down with a mic and record?
We record on the floor actually.
Oh
So
wow,
yeah, so you
that's
have the background noise.
That
And
is impressive.
yeah, so and we are, well, one of our plans is to start doing video as well. I think
Yeah,
that's gonna be fun to just like stop people randomly and ask them, but not like I have a bunch of like fun things that I want to experiment with, so we'll see how that goes. But like, yeah, I'm looking forward. It's gonna be fun.
that's cool. Yeah, I have to say, like, my previous podcast on Call Me Maybe was audio only. And so when I started this podcast, I'm like, I want to do audio and video because I know there's some people who love podcasts and there are other people who are like, I hate podcasts, but they'll watch video. So I offer it in both formats. And also, like, the fun thing about doing the video is, like, first of all, you can see some really cool office setups. Sometimes you can see some like awesome outfits and hairdos that you just don't get to experience if you're just recording the audio. So that's been kind of fun to experience as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely, yeah, that's part of the plan. The other also part of the plan is to, I mean, if you have a phone, you can literally record anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you can, since I travel so much, it would be fun to be able to like travel and record in different parts of the world and just have, some fun background. Or I'm mostly interested in recording outdoors, I think. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah.
depending on the weather. so so it would be fun, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I did my last season of this podcast. I ended up with 2 episodes that I recorded during Cube Huddle.
Oh, yes,
And,
yeah.
I recorded those, like, on site, outside. And that was fun. It was like I'd never done an on-site recording, but there was, like, a couple my 2 guests that I had on there, I've been trying to chase them down, like, trying to align schedules. I'm like, "We're gonna be in the same place. I'm gonna sit you down. We're gonna record."
Nice. Nice. I've been I've been to an event in Berlin a few weeks ago, and during this event they had a podcast studio that anybody could use.
Ooh,
And that was actually a lot, like, I really liked the idea. I mean, that's like was more professional. So that was kind of triggered this idea of doing video, because doing video on the go, because then you
yeah,
can have different backgrounds and you can have, I mean, maybe the quality of the video is not as important, as long as you can get the audio right, and then you
yes.
can get like people visible on camera. That's all it matters.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely say, like, invest in a decent mic because I did last KubeCon North America in Chicago. I did a series called Humans of Hotel, like for open telemetry.
Yeah,
And I had these like really crappy Amazon mics that I had gotten, like these, I guess they were crappy lavalier mics. And oh my God, like some of the sound quality was so bad. I had to like cut out a couple of videos because I couldn't make out what the people were saying.
we're saying,
And
yeah.
then the next KubeCon, one of the hotel guys, Henrik Rick, said he messages me. He's like, I have some really nice recording equipment that we could use for the next KubeCon. And I'm
Nice.
like, I'm like, oh, he's being so polite, basically saying like my audio quality was not that great. Please let me help you. And I'm like, I am happy to take the help. And his setup, like when we did the Humans of Hotel for KubeCon in Paris, was so sweet. Like he knows his shit.
Yeah,
So
I remember I saw the setup. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
you had like, yeah. So we used to record for the KubeCon episodes with the Rode Wireless 2. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the, and I recently got a pair of the DJI wireless microphones.
Oh, nice.
Just because I like them, because they come in like a very nice case with
Yeah.
both the receiver and the transmitters, but the case also double up as a charging case.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So and I did some experiments, and the audio quality is pretty good. So I'm looking forward to start using that one and see how it comes out.
Ooh, fun new toys.
Yeah, of course, it's always a good time to use new toys,
Right?
right?
I know when people are like, "Oh, you have to get this mic." I'm like, "Okay." Twist
Sure.
my arm. It's new
They're not very
electronic.
expensive, so
No, they're not too bad. Yeah, I also like after that incident at that first KubeCon in Chicago with Humans of Hotel, I'm like, I need better mics, and I need to obviously pay more than $50 for for
yeah,
my wireless mic. So yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile investment to get a decent set of lavalier mics.
definitely, definitely.
The other thing that I wanted to ask, because you mentioned that like you had studied, you said you studied software engineering in school, right?
Yes.
But you now work and you found your way into the DevOps space. You work as a developer advocate currently, right?
Correct. Yes.
In the Google Cloud space, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, can you talk about how you found yourself in this role?
It's a long story. Okay, I'll try to make it short. So, a little bit of background. So I studied in Morocco, right? So I am originally from there. I was born and raised there. I studied my master's degree in software engineering in one of the schools we have in Morocco. Morocco, for those who doesn't know, we follow um, the same system as the rest of Europe. So that's basically high school, bachelor, masters, right? That's I think that's the American version, but we say licence, master. It doesn't matter. Like 3 years you get a bachelor, 5 years you get a master's, right? So I got my master's in software engineering, and my first job, and this is where things started being interesting for me in my career. My first job was actually in a data center.
Ooh.
Yeah, like an actual physical data center.
Oh, damn.
like yeah,
That's
with
hardcore.
hardware. Yes, pretty much. um, so
So you
there's
were
this
cold all the time.
actually it's a very interesting point. A lot of people think that you need to run data centers at sub-zero temperature. You don't. Hardware, like data center grade hardware, is made to sustain very high temperatures.
Oh,
um,
good.
we
Cool.
definitely had customers that wanted us to run their server rooms at like 10 degrees, 10 degrees C. I don't know how much is that in
Damn.
freedom units.
I'm a Celsius girl, so you
Okay,
speak my
so yeah, you're
language.
from Canada, so you're from the right part of the world. So, uh, uh, which is too cold. It's cold even for humans, right? So that's just.
Yeah.
But no, we run our. I mean, of course, the colder you want your data center to be, the more energy you're gonna spend or waste, right? So
Yeah.
but yeah, I joined this company that was looking for. Initially, they were actually looking for somebody to help them set up their internal systems because the data center was new. So you have, your ticketing system and your CRM and all your tools that you need to actually make the thing operational, your monitoring systems and all this stuff. And by monitoring, I'm talking back the days, Nagios time and,
That's old school.
SNMP and, old school. Before it became cool and we started calling it observability, I guess. So 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 I started there, and yeah, that role was a little bit of software engineering, a little bit of automation, so kind of DevOps, right?
Yeah.
And then through that role, I got contacted by Google, and they actually hired me to work in their data center in Belgium. So that's
Oh,
how I joined Google. Yeah, we have
cool.
data centers obviously all over the place. So Belgium is one of the biggest ones in Europe. So I joined that team and continued doing the same thing. So a little bit of a little bit of automation, a little bit of system administration. Then a few years later, cloud started becoming a thing. At least for us. I mean, I guess it existed all over for other companies, but like Google started being kind of more serious about it. And in 2017, they wanted me or they hired me to join a consulting team, an internal consulting team. So it's a team that basically works with external customers and help them, architect, migrate,
Hmm.
whatever that needs to happen to get stuff from where they are to Google Cloud, right? So I joined that team initially to work on infrastructure because that's my background.
Yeah.
But like very quickly, I started working with Kubernetes. This is Kubernetes in 2017, so it was not as complex, I guess, as it is today. And I started learning it. I had no idea what containerization was. I had no idea what I think the only experience I had before was Mesos. But Mesos is like it's an orchestration system which is similar to Kubernetes, but it orchestrates virtual machines and not containers,
Hmm.
right? And I did work a little bit on OpenStack before, so conceptually it's the same idea. You are still orchestrating workloads, it just at different levels of the stack, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and then just started learning Kubernetes and somehow became an putting air quotes SME, subject matter expert. So um so then and then parallel to this, and back in the days when I was still living in Morocco, I was very active in the Ubuntu community because I started with Linux, right?
Hmm.
So I was a member of the local user group So that's like, yeah, the user group for Ubuntu, and we were doing Linux parties, events, install
Yeah.
parties. We just go to university and people come with a laptop, and we will help them deploy Ubuntu, help them sort out drivers, give them like functional environments where they can like, play with Linux. And then in my role as a consultant, I started actually doing conferences, and my first conference was back home. So there is a conference in Morocco called DevOps. It's a large conference, and in 2017 they invited me, and 2018 I joined the committee, and I am in the committee since that 2018. So I was like, oh damn, I like this idea of like, presenting, public speaking, talking to developers, understanding what people are trying to solve. More understanding what people are trying to solve than actually talking to them, really.
Yeah.
And and then in 2022, I basically, 5 years in consulting, I was like, I'm looking for something new.
Yeah.
And I talked to the DevRel manager for EMEA. I was like, hey, I would like to give DevRel a go. And he was like, we don't have anybody in cloud native, so why not? And that's how I joined DevRel.
Oh, that's so
So
great. Wow.
yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting transition, in the sense of, the way I like to describe it is that I've been over time going up the abstraction layers from the hardware all the way into containers.
But
So,
it's so cool to see, like, basically everything in your life had been building up to that moment, right?
I
So
guess,
then,
yes. Yeah.
so then you were like, by the time you became a DevRel, it was like it felt like a natural fit too for you.
Yes, yes, in a way, and also because I've always been comfortable talking in public. I guess I like it always came natural to me. I think when I was actually back in my university time, I was doing tutoring for my colleagues
Mhm.
in my class. So I would like help people, understand concepts like
Yeah,
after the actual class. And it always came natural. That I think it's more coming from the fact that you just like to help people,
yeah,
not really wanting to talk at people. It's more like,
yeah,
hey, if I explain something and you understand it, I'm happy, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's such a satisfying feeling, like, you get it and now they get it, and
Exactly.
so yeah, yeah. Yeah, compared to, like, I don't know if you had this experience in university, I had professors who, were too smart for their own good and couldn't explain anything.
Oh, of course.
Like,
Oh yeah, yes.
I one of my memorable moments was I had I had this midterm, and I go to the professor during his office hours, and I'm like, can you explain, like, why I got this wrong? And he's like, well, it's easy. Obviously, if you don't understand the question, then I can't explain it to you. I'm like, what just happened here?
Sounds like a Karen to me.
I'm like, all right, well, thanks for nothing, buddy.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I mean, it's interesting. Like the academic world, I have friends in academia right now, like where like in Sweden, we have a lot of friends who are like researchers and postdocs and stuff like that, and they're like young and our age, and they had to all suffer through some of what you're describing eventually, right,
Right?
at some point. And I think that the 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 probably one of the reasons is because when you are studying to become a professor, you have to build up so much knowledge that you end up not having to apply all of it. So you feel you are like better than everybody else. Like you
Mhm.
obviously know more than your
Yeah.
average student, right?
Yeah, 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 for sure.
And so I have a friend who is a biochemist.
Yeah,
She's like postdoc and she does research and stuff, and she has to teach. So she has one semester every year that she has to teach,
yeah.
and sometimes she starts complaining about these kids, they don't understand anything, and I'm always like, remember when you were in their shoes? you you also did not understand much, right? So
Yeah, so true, so
uh
true.
I think that's, yeah, I had to experiment, I had to go through that as well. So yeah, whatever.
I mean, I think we come back more resilient, and I
Of
think
course.
then, for people like us, where it's like part of our job to explain how things work in an accessible manner, I feel like you almost tap into that feeling of helplessness of like, oh my God, it was horrible when I didn't understand this concept and I was so lost. And then, the whole, the whole thing just got away from under me. Right. Versus like having someone who can explain things in a way that's accessible, where like, you're like, oh my God, I finally understand how this works. Like, it makes such a difference having that aha moment and seeing people get it, I think is so satisfying.
And that's exactly what happened to me 6 months later after I started learning Rust, right? So the aha moment, they're like, oh, now I know.
Dun, dun,
Now I get
dun. This
it.
gives me hope. This gives me hope. If I ever want to touch Rust,
Exactly.
then
I mean,
then
you
I
know
need.
how it works. Like you start learning something and you go like through hello world and it works. And then it stops working and you don't understand what's going on. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm stupid. Oh my God, I'm stupid. Oh my God, I'm stupid. And you build up to stupidity and they're like, oh, now I know.
It's so true. It's like, it's almost like, if your program works the first time around, like, first of all, when that happens, I'm like, I'm shocked. Why? What? But then also,
Are you sure?
like, yeah, right. Like, are you? Yeah, are you sure? But the other thing too, in some ways, it's like, it's almost like you're robbed of the experience of the failure, which leads to like so much more insights into the problem compared to like getting it right the first time. Like, when you fail so hard that you've broken your system, and I can't tell you how many times I've broken things beyond repair, and then you kind of have to like just start building it from scratch, one thing at a time, and then you finally understand, oh, this is where it broke. Like, I feel like that is such a validating experience, even though I spent the last like 4 hours like in panic mode, like, why isn't this working?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think learning through failure is valuable, but also like you don't always have, and that's actually I think you can relate to this. Like in DevRel, you don't always have that luxury, right?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
sometimes you just. So I think my favorite thing that I would do in my current role is actually go on Stack Overflow. I am spending quite a lot of time there because I find that that's a really good resource for understanding what people are struggling with
Mm-hmm.
and trying to replicate the error,
Mm.
and then walk my way back from that to try to figure out what was the intention of the user to start with,
Yeah,
and then how can we solve this for the user, but how can we solve it for everybody else, right?
yeah,
um and that's so much, I get so much joy from that, right?
yeah,
But that's something you can do. You can control your time, you can take time, you can do it, you have time to do it, like you don't have pressure. You don't always have that. And
yeah,
like the downside I think of DevRel is that you live in, I mean, I hate using this word, but you live in the cutting edge of the technology, that sometimes you are required to build stuff, and by stuff I mean content, about things that no one knows how to use yet.
yeah,
New features, new stuff come out, and you are expected to teach people how to use it, but like you don't necessarily understand how it works, right? And we live in this space right now, right? Like AI.
yeah,
Um it's definitely a very interesting kind of role to be in.
yeah.
And knowing how to balance these two things is quite challenging, but quite good to learn from, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it is exciting, and you make a really good point about like being on the cutting edge means that you're probably one of the few people who is tackling this problem, which therefore makes you one of the few experts, even if you're not an expert in that at the time, which is a little bit terrifying. And I've definitely found myself in that position. Like, even there was something in Open Telemetry the other day where they had updated the API for something, the Open Telemetry operator. So I was like updating like my YAML manifests for it, and I'm like, unfortunately, the documentation on in the README was not up to date.
Yeah.
So I had to like chase down the answer by going. It was a combination of going into the code, but also like not Googling, searching through Slack messages to find my answer.
What
And
changed?
then I'm like, yeah, exactly, what changed. And then once I got it working, I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna go back to the README and fix this, because like if I was confused, someone else is gonna be confused.
Yeah. Yeah, and like a lot of times when that happens to me, the same thing around GKE, which is our product. I mean, our Kubernetes product. It's usually some change log that just slipped through the cracks. That like that
Mhm.
change happened somewhere. There is a comment, but it was not in the release notes, right? The
Yeah,
doc is
yeah,
not up to date, and different lab. But like to a large extent, I don't. I always think that that's something that would happen to anybody. Like any developer would eventually be faced with that kind of problems,
yeah,
and
definitely.
it is definitely part of your job as a DevRel to figure that out and figure out how that could be improved going forward, right? Because like a lot of times people see DevRel as, oh, we just like travel and talk to conferences. No, 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 no. There's a lot of time spent talking to engineering teams
Yeah, that's true.
and telling them like this is how things are supposed to work. I know that you don't think so, but let me tell you. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of it's a two ways role. You talk to people outside your company, but you also talk to people inside your company.
yeah, 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 which makes it a very sort of unique role. You're basically bridging the gap, right? So that you're like telling the engineers like this is how people are actually using it. So
Yes, and you better
which,
listen to me.
yeah, yeah, which sometimes is hard, like, putting yourself in the shoes of the engineer, getting that feedback where you're like, you kind of, it's your baby, you've invested your time into like writing it a certain way and being told like that's not how people are using it. You have to sort of put your feelings aside. I have this mantra that I try to live by. I don't always succeed, but I try to live by, like, never fall in love with your code.
Yes,
Because you never know, like someone's going to come along and do it better, and you have to be open-minded enough to be like, yeah, this is a better solution. I got to let go of what I wrote and not be so possessive about it. So
exactly, exactly.
yeah, cool. Well, we are coming up on time, but before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you if you have any pieces of advice or hot takes that you want to share with our audience.
Oh, um, does AI count as a hot take?
Oh, sure.
It's
Bring it on.
actually interesting. I am in the process of I'm involved in some startup programs that are AI startups where we're supposed to review what the startup product is all about. And my hot take is the following: not AI is not gonna solve all the problems that people think they are gonna solve. I feel like people are trying to shove AI like in places where it shouldn't, and it comes out very obvious a lot of times when you look at something and they're like, but can't you just solve this a different way? Why do you need to put AI everywhere?
Yeah, I agree.
um, um, but yeah, no. And then my other hot take is Kubernetes is here to stick around. I think that a lot of people think that it's not. It's a faded technology. It's not. It's going to be around for a while. So just, I guess, the more people learn to live with this and accept it, the better it's going to be for everyone.
What are some things that you kind of look forward to seeing in Kubernetes in the next little while?
Maturity for sure. There is quite a lot of interesting. I mean, again, in the AI space, there is quite a lot of improvements happening in Kubernetes itself that are happening for AI, but I see use cases for them beyond just AI. Right? It like the community is definitely shifting and adapting to like accommodate kind of AI workloads,
Yeah,
AI and ML workloads. But the ramification of this is going to go beyond. I mean, speaking of observability, that like just in the last version of Kubernetes, they have added quite a lot of things around device observability. So if you have a GPU attached or a CPU, how can you expose metrics through the node, and how can you like monitor those? And that's pretty cool. But I mean, there are use cases where you have to attach all sorts of hardware to a node and monitor how that hardware is performing, and that's going to help solve other types of problems. So and yeah, it's evolving and maturing at a very slow-ish pace, but it's at a very steady pace, and I'm very excited to see what the future brings. And also there is a lot of things happening in the networking space, because that's kind of one of my areas of focus, and I'm really excited to see how that goes.
ooh, that's great. Looking forward to seeing more cool things come out of Kubernetes in the next little while.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Abdel, for geeking out with me today. Y'all don't forget to subscribe and be sure to check the show notes for additional resources and to connect with us and our guests on social media. Until next time.
Peace out and geek out.
Geeking Out is hosted and produced by me, Adriana Vilela. I also compose and perform the theme music on my trusty clarinet. Geeking Out is also produced by my daughter, Hannah Maxwell, who incidentally designed all of the cool graphics. Be sure to follow us on all the socials by going to bento.me/geekingout.